Hello and welcome back to the Ghostwriter channel. This is for all of the aspiring ghostwriters and potential future cover authors. So in this video, it's a little bit of an extension that I've talked about before about clarity. And one of the biggest sources of confusion and even of debates that come about is, should you use the serial comma? Well, it's a good question. Let's take a look at it. What is a serial comma? It's also called the Oxford comma, which gets its name from the Oxford University Press, where it's been a standard for well over a century. So whether you call it the serial comma, the Oxford comma, what it is, it's the final comma that comes after a list of three or more things, even before coordinating conjunctions, such as or, and, but, and things like that. So for instance, I like apples, oranges, and bananas. This comma right here is the serial comma. And then again, there's a lot of debates. A lot of writers say, well, you don't need it because if you just said, I like apples, oranges, and bananas, everybody knows what you mean. And yeah, there could be some truth to that, and it depends. Now it's interesting, the elimination of this comma was actually done decades ago as a business decision among the printers to save paper. You can imagine you start adding on this extra comma and a space every few sentences, and suddenly you're talking about a lot more paper. But most sources say it's up to the writer. So again, it's always about clarity. Should you use it? Should you not? Well, again, use it when it ensures clarity. So here's some examples, let's say, that I've talked about before. This is actually supposed to be from a book where it said, dedicated to my parents, Mother Teresa, and the Pope. So it certainly sounds like this person's parents were Mother Teresa and the Pope. Now, some people who are kind of opposed to the serial comma would say, well, if it's unclear, let's revise it. Well, should you revise? And how could you? Well, we could rewrite it as dedicated to Mother Teresa, the Pope, and my parents. And that's fine as well. The problem here is that now it sounds like most of the dedication is to Mother Teresa. And it sounds like from the first sentence that this person wanted to primarily dedicate it to their parents. And if that's true, parents should be at the front of the list, not at the back. So this is where a comma after Mother Teresa would certainly help. Here's another example. The dinner guests included Dave, Sarah, Mike, and Mary. Well, it sounds like Mike and Mary are a couple because we've combined them together. So again, it's really unclear. Are Dave and Sarah just two individual people and Mike and Mary are a couple? Or is it just four single people? Well, if we rewrite it as the dinner guests included Dave, Sarah, Mike, comma, and Mary, now it becomes very clear. Mike and Mary are not a couple. Here's another example that you'll see a lot cited with quite a comedic effect. But it was, I believe it was Merle Haggard, but in an article somewhere they wrote that the country western singer was joined on stage by his two ex-wives, Kris Kristofferson and Waylon Jennings. Well, obviously it sounds like Kris Kristofferson and Waylon Jennings are the two ex-wives. So highly ambiguous here. Put a comma after Kris Kristofferson and it becomes very clear that these are three distinct groups. So here's another example. Let's say the refrigerator contained 2 pounds of chicken, a pound of beef, and pork. This is terribly ambiguous. Is it a pound of beef and a pound of pork? Or is it a pound of beef and an unknown amount of pork? Or does the beef and pork add up to a pound? See, we don't know, and all of those could be legitimate interpretations. So depending on what you're writing, this could be terribly confusing to your readers. So depending on what the issue is, maybe we would say the refrigerator contained 2 pounds of chicken, a pound of beef, comma, and a pound of pork. Now it becomes very clear what we're talking about. But if it was just an unknown amount of pork, maybe we could revise it as the refrigerator contained 2 pounds of chicken, a pound of beef, and some pork. All right, well now it's at least clear. So the point is, should you use a serial comma? Well, remember, it's all about clarity. It's all about the reader capturing your message. And if a sentence is clear without it, sure, consider leaving it out. But if there's any ambiguity at all, use it. If you're considering writing a book and would like to talk more about hiring a ghostwriter, please call 561-282-9455. You can also email ghosthost@financeghostwriter.com.